Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first impressions ride review of the 2019 Indian Scout 60. That's right, everybody. This is my very own Indian Scout 60. I can't believe that this day has finally come true where I own a cruiser bike, but not just any old cruiser bike, just authentic Americana, pure cruiser bike like riding experience. I absolutely love this motorcycle. I've only had it for a few days, but it has seriously left a very strong first impression on me, and I'm so happy that I finally get to be a part of this end of the motorcycle community. It's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, this bike is a work of art, don't you think? With this silvery colour on the black, with the gold here as well, these accents, I think this is such a beautiful looking bike with these twin chrome pipes as well. I mean, they do have other models where they have blacked out pipes if that's more your thing, but personally with this paint scheme, with the way how this bike in particular looks, I think that the chrome pipes work very nicely with it. But my goodness, where the hell do we start with this bike? She's big. She's a big bike, very long wheelbase, lots of presence on the road, but surprisingly fairly narrow as well, so filtering and getting around places isn't too inconvenient, and you can still do all of the usual motorcycle type things that you would be doing on a bike on this one. So yeah, I mean, there's so much here to talk about. Let's start at the front end of the bike, I suppose. So we've got right side up forks, very interesting for a bike of this age. I would have expected them to be inverted forks, but not that that really matters, to be honest with you, on the day-to-day feel of the riding experience of the bike. But the overall front end look of the bike is absolutely gorgeous, absolutely stunning. But you see what I mean, how it is quite narrow in nature. The widest part of the bike are here and here. So for me, it probably would have been nice if these were just a little bit shorter. They came in just a little bit, but we can always look at getting aftermarket ones at some point if it ends up being a real issue for me. But it's got these nice little Indian badges on here as well, so I don't really want to change those out if I don't have to. But that's the only thing really when you're riding and you're filtering or going in between traffic or narrow spaces. The widest point of the bike is at the very end of the handlebars. That's the only real thing that makes the bike a little bit wider than it otherwise would normally be. But yeah, it's got quite a narrow profile. There's lots of chrome everywhere as well, lots of silvery colour, which I think really works with the retro aesthetic of the bike. Of course, I mean, it's got a very long fuel tank. Very long fuel tank, but not that that impacts the riding experience or the ergonomics whatsoever. Belt driven as well on the final drive. Absolutely wicked. It's my first ever bike that I've ridden that's got a final belt drive, which is awesome. And of course, how can we not talk about the big V-twin in the middle here? This 61 cubic inch V-twin is quite the powerhouse. It's got, to be honest with you, the specs aren't all that impressive really, but when you're riding it, this thing is punching so much with its torque, and the transition between the torque and the horsepower is absolutely beautiful. And well, yeah, we've got the rear seat on this one with this pillion backrest as well, hoping that me and the wifey are going to be able to do some touring with this bike, some fairly long distance riding with it. The back end of the bike as well, I think looks really nice, very retro but in a tasteful way. It's just overall a beautiful looking bike. It is just such a work of art. It's a masterpiece. So far, you guys, I've seriously fallen hard for this bike. Well, now that we've had a good look at the outside of the bike, I think now it's time for us to have a little listen to the soundtrack. This bike sounds amazing. It's not like the most garish sound in the world. It is quite, for a cruiser bike, it is quite a reverse sound, a reserved sound, should I say. So we've got the ignition down here on your left. Oh, actually, in fact, before we start the bike up, let me show you the keys. So we've got this key, which is the ignition, just for the ignition. We've got this key as well, which opens the fuel cap and locks the steering. Oh, so cool. Here we go. See what I mean? It sounds really nice, but it's not overly obnoxious. If anything, I do want to get some aftermarket slip-ons for this bike to give it just that little bit more of a grunt. You know what I mean? Oh, she sounds really nice. But you see what I mean? There's so much more potential for that sound there. If we just get some aftermarket slip-ons, I think it will change the way how this bike sounds for the better. As she sounds really, really nice. Oh, I can't wait to take this bike out with you guys. Oh, you guys, the way how this bike makes me feel things that I've never felt before on a motorcycle. Where do I start, you guys? Where do I start this ride review? Well, I guess we can start off, as always, with the ergonomics. So, to be honest with you, the ergonomics of this bike, very classic cruiser bike riding position. Reach of the handlebars, there is a slight reach, but you can adjust the way how you sit on the seat to make it a little bit easier to reach, or you can sit a little bit further back, so you've got some options there. Reach to the ground is absolutely fine, to be honest with you. I think the vast majority of riders are going to have no problem flat footing this bike with both feet, moving it around absolutely fine with your feet as well. Ergonomically, I mean, is as you'd expect it from a cruiser. Your feet are out in front of you as well, and because we've got these platforms, these really cool platforms here, it makes it so comfortable on those longer journeys. Now, I haven't taken this bike out on a long trip yet, but I do have a long trip planned in about a week's time, and I'll be shooting a video at that point, going through what it's like, because I would prefer to do a tour on something like this than on a touring bike. You know what I mean? I mean, this is touring with style as far as I'm concerned. This is just a much cooler, much more interesting way to travel than on any old touring bike, or adventure tourer for that matter. But my goodness, I mean, this is the quintessential cruiser bike like riding experience. If you've never ever been on a cruiser bike before, I'd heavily recommend that you give it a go, even if it's not your thing. All right, cruiser bikes were never my thing when I first started riding. I didn't think I would ever be interested in cruiser bikes, but I test rode the Vulcan S650 a couple of years ago, and ever since then I've just been itching to get my hands on one of these types of bikes. But if I was going to buy one, I'd have to buy something authentic. And thankfully, one of these popped up at Fraser's, and I did a short test ride, just 10 minutes, and I was like, shut up and take my money. It's just so cool, you guys. It's just one of the coolest bikes ever. Even though this is just an entry-level bike from Indian, it's still incredibly premium feeling. It's still incredibly quick, and you don't feel like you're missing out on that cruiser bike experience. So you guys, before we jump into some 0 to 60 runs, let's go through the specs. So this is the 2019 Indian Scout 60. It's running a 61 cubic inch or 999.6 cc 60 degree V-twin. It's producing 78 horsepower at the crank, 89 newton meters of torque, all whilst weighing in 256 kilograms wet. Now, not the most impressive spec sheet in the world. Less than 100 horsepower, less than 100 newton meters of torque, quite a hefty weight, 256 wet. But it's again one of those bikes where the spec sheet doesn't really do it justice, because this bike is very quick. In a straight line, it goes, man. I mean, this is a 1000cc bike after all, so you would expect it to have some pep, and it seriously does. It's not the most nimble thing in the world. It is like, does kind of feel like riding a yacht, I guess, trying to pilot a boat. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit here. We've got some 0 to 60 runs to do. So I don't know where this is going to sit 0 to 60 wise. I mean, I think we're going to be looking at maybe around about 4 seconds. Let's see. Here we go. There. Now, I'm not sure if I short shifted early there or not, but this thing can get off the line very, very quickly, especially when you get it into second gear. It's just got so much torque behind it. It is incredibly quick, considering how big and how heavy it is. Right, let's wait for these cyclists to move past, then we'll do another run. But that's got to be between 4 and 4.5 seconds for me. Maybe even under 4 seconds. Alright. I think we can get a better launch with this one. Here we go. Ah, nice. We got there. Okay, so we can get up to 60 in second gear. Now, I've left it in second gear for now because I want to try doing a launch in just second gear. I don't know how well this is going to work. Let's see. Here we go. Boom! Now, I'm not sure if that was any faster or slower than going from first into second, but my idea behind that is just to avoid having to use the clutch to get up into second gear to complete the run. Now, any of you who have ridden a Scout 60 before, you'll probably already be aware of the bike's gearing problems. Now, going from first to second on this bike can be difficult sometimes. The amount of times I land myself in neutral, it's almost like you've got to be at the perfect RPM to do a smooth shift up into second gear. But yeah, not the smoothest shifting in the world up into second, and also getting up into fifth as well. This is a 5-speed manual gearbox. And yeah, again, it can be a very similar picture trying to get up into fifth gear. It can be quite difficult on a cruise, but it is totally doable, and my normal everyday riding, I haven't had too much trouble getting into fifth gear. To be honest with you, it's been more difficult getting it into second a lot of the time than in fifth. But yeah, it's just one of those things to keep in mind. Now, the nimbleness of the bike. This is one of those things that I think we're going to be discussing quite a lot in today's review, because as much as its turning circle isn't that great, to be honest with you, it's very long wheelbase, very low to the ground, not very flickable either into the bends, but it is actually surprisingly agile, even though it can be a little bit tough going around those tight bends. It is such a strange experience to try and explain, because it can lean and it can be nimble when it needs to be, but it can fight you sometimes. This bike is best in a straight line, as you would expect. Cruiser bikes, they're not race bikes, they are designed to be ridden in a straight line. Anyway, let's go ahead and cut the engine so we can talk about the dashboard and its electronic features. I mean, there isn't much to speak of here in terms of features. The dashboard is very basic. I think with the newer models they have a full color TFT dashboard, if I'm not mistaken. I think they came in 2020 or 2021, so that would have been nice. It would have been nice to have one of those. It would have made the dashboard look much more modern. But to be honest with you, I'm not buying a bike like this for its techie features. But so on this side we haven't, not a lot going on. All right, we've just got the kill switch, the starter, non-adjustable brake lever. On this side again, non-adjustable clutch, but the clutch feel is very, very nice. We've got the horn. How does that sound? That's quite a decent sounding horn. Yeah, of course, we've got our full beam and our dip beam. We've got our indicators. Now, also, we've got the hazard lights here. Now, the way how that works is you push it in and you hold for a second or so, and then you get the hazard lights coming on, which is pretty cool. Save space for an extra button on these unit clusters, you know, so it makes them a little bit cleaner. Now, to control the dashboard here, you actually use the button on the back here that you would normally use for the high beam flash function. So let's go through it. So at the moment I've got it on the trip computer, trip 1. So if we press it, now this is really cool, because when I first bought this bike I didn't know that it had an RPM meter. I didn't know it had a tachometer, because on the dashboard here you have no tach whatsoever. Not that that is strictly necessary, to be honest with you. I haven't felt the need to know what my RPMs are, but it does have a digital readout of your RPMs. We'll make use of that when we go ahead with continue with the ride review. But yeah, if we cycle through again, so this is the engine temperature. It's a little bit confusing because you've got N, E, and then you've got MPH at the top there. This is a little gear indicator, the N there. So this is E, engine temperature, 100 degrees C. That's what it's reading at the moment. The odometer, so this is 5,168 miles. You've got the clock underneath, and that is pretty much it. Now, to reset the trip computer, you just have to hold that button at the back there, and it resets it for you. It's pretty nice that it's got this gear indicator, but it's not the best gear indicator in the world. Like, if I put it into first, for example, if it's going to let me, there we go. See, it doesn't actually show what gear it's in until you let the clutch out. But the bike has to be moving for it to pick up what gear you're in. It knows when you're in neutral, but it doesn't know when you're in any other gear unless you have the clutch out and you're moving. So it's almost like as if, I mean, I don't know what system Indian have used here for the gear indicator, but it's almost like as if it's running off the speed of the final drive to determine what gear you're actually in. But it's an interesting way of implementing a gear indicator, not my preferred method, but hey, it's a gear indicator nonetheless, and I think it is quite useful, especially when you are on those cruises, those long cruises on the highway, and you know, because the thing is, this bike's got so much torque, you could quite easily leave it in fourth gear and just cruise in fourth if you really wanted to. I think there are certain riders that I read in forums that that's pretty much what they do on a regular basis, is just leave it in fourth. But it is nice to have that there if you did want to flick it up into fifth. But that is pretty much it, you guys. Nothing else here to speak of. There are some other options that you could have looked at installing, like a USB charger for your phone. I mean, it might be something that I'll look at aftermarket. I don't know, because I do plan to take this bike on longer journeys. Now, one thing to note here about when you're sitting at a standstill with the bike running, for some reason, my left thigh gets very, very warm. I mean, this here is the top end of the cylinder. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it sticks out a little bit here. That touches the inside of my thigh every once in a while, and it does get very, very warm. It's the same on this side as well, but I think it's just the way how I plant my foot on the ground is a little bit different, so it doesn't quite reach the inside of my leg. But yeah, with my left leg here, the top part of the cylinder head does get quite close to the inside of my thigh there. So I don't know if there's like a cover or something I could put on that just to cover my leg from being burnt. But yeah, it's just something I wanted to mention, because my natural position for standing still is here, but of course the straighter you have your leg, the closer it's going to be to the cylinder head. So I had to get used to adjusting my foot placement to here, so there's a little bit more of a gap there. Only an issue at a standstill when you're waiting in traffic for a long period of time. When you're actually on the ride, there's no problem whatsoever. No issue at all. But it's just that there's a few foibles about this bike which we are going to discuss in a moment here, but whilst we were at a standstill, it just made sense to mention it there and then. But my goodness, you guys, what a riding experience this is. So much torque on tap. I mean, this is torque from idle RPMs. And even though this bike might not be the quickest thing in the world, it feels incredibly quick when you ride it. Incredibly quick. And that is the quintessential cruiser bike riding experience. It's not all about the top end horsepower, it's all about that torque, all about the low end torque. Although at the higher end RPMs, this is where the bike gets into its horsepower, and there's a surprisingly nice transition going between the torque and the horsepower. It's really, really nice to ride this bike. Now, it's not a pushrod V-twin, this, so it's not quite the not quite the most, what's the word, authentic riding experience from an American cruiser bike. This is a dual overhead cam design, but to be honest with you, that allows it to have higher RPMs. It allows it to produce a little bit more horsepower with a little bit less displacement, so you're able to get a little bit more out of a slightly smaller engine. So for me, that is a worthwhile trade-off, because at the time I was considering like a Scout, not the Scout 60, just the original Scout, which has got a larger engine, it's got more horsepower, more torque, but it is a heavier bike. But I think, to be honest with you, the experience for the most part isn't that different unless you're in 5th and 6th gear. But even so, in top gear on this bike, in 5th gear, it still has plenty of grunt, plenty of torque, And the thing is, this bike was local to me, so it was a little bit more convenient for me to buy. Oh, let's go ahead and put in the RPMs there, the tachometer on the digi display. So it just made a bit more sense for me to pick up this bike rather than going a little bit further afield to get an original or regular Scout. And I had two bikes to part exchange, so because I don't have a van at the moment, it made sense to pick up this one, and it was a bit more convenient part exchanging the bikes locally. But yeah, I'm chuffed, really chuffed with this bike. It's about as authentic as you can get without having to be honest with you, when it comes to pushrod V-twins, there are quite a lot of downsides to pushrod V-twin. So lower RPMs, more torque, certainly, but significantly lower RPMs, and a lot of them are air-cooled or oil-cooled. So you haven't got the benefit of having that extra top-end horsepower that the engines could produce, and you haven't got the benefit of higher RPMs. Whereas a dual overhead cam design, or a timing chain driven design, you can get a lot more out of it, a lot more out of a smaller engine. So in theory, this engine would be a little bit more fuel economic, get a little bit better gas mileage. I'm allowed to say that because I'm riding an Indian. But yeah, better fuel mileage, although this bike on the dashboard doesn't actually have an MPG meter, which is a little bit of a shame, but not a huge problem, to be honest with you. It's going to be okay, I guess. It's not going to be the greatest fuel economy in the world, but I don't know. I don't actually know what the fuel economy would be. I haven't had enough time to ride this bike to know, but I'll pop it up on the screen for you from other references. But I mean, well, I guess to be fair, riding between 50 and 60 mile an hour, 2,500 RPM over a long journey, your mileage will probably be pretty good. But yeah, there are some serious downsides to pushrod V-twin as opposed to a dual overhead cam design, which is why not most manufacturers don't use pushrod engines, to be honest with you, because there's no real need. There are more efficient designs these days, although I guess timing of the bike is one of those things that needs a little bit more maintenance, adjusting the timing chain tension, buying a new timing chain after X amount of miles and X amount of years. And I suppose that's something to think about. Less maintenance involved, I guess, with a pushrod V-twin, but even so, there are some pros and some cons going either way. But yeah, I personally don't mind that this is a dual overhead cam design. I'm happy. I'm happy with it so far. Sounds great, looks great, rides great. What more do you want from an all-American cruiser? Alright, so I want to go back to the nimbleness of the bike here for a moment, because as this is a low-rider cruiser bike, it does sit fairly low to the ground, and despite it being a fairly nimble bike, despite its weight and despite how low it rises to the ground, unfortunately there is a little bit more space, a little bit more room to lean this bike over, or there should be a little bit more space, a little bit more room to lean this bike over a little bit more, but it doesn't allow you to do that. I've scraped the pegs on this bike quite a lot in just the few days that I've had it. I have to really concentrate on how far I lean the bike over, but it wouldn't surprise me if on the ride review today you'll hear me scraping pegs. wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think that is just one of those things with a cruiser bike. It is what it is. It's not a super sport like riding experience, so you're not going to be dragging knee, you know. You're not going to be riding it like that. It is a different riding experience, and it is one that you do have to get used to. There are other cruiser bikes that I've ridden which are a little bit better in that regard, so you can lean them over a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why those pegs are there. So you don't scrape the exhaust, or you don't scrape something else on the bike. You don't scrape the bottom end of the engine block or the frame or something like that, you know. So I fully appreciate and understand why they're there, but that's what I mean. This bike could have been a little bit more nimble than it is, but yeah, you guys, leaning this bike over is not his forte. But let's see what it's like on the highway. So yeah, plenty of torque, getting all the way up into 60, 70, 80 mile an hour, no problem at all. Now I could leave it here cruising in 4th. Let's go ahead and pop it into 5th. Not a big problem. Alright, so at 70 mile an hour we're holding, it's 3,750 RPM. So not bad. Not bad. I think you should get some pretty decent fuel mileage out of it over a longer journey. But speaking of fuel mileage, one of the downsides to this bike, again, another one of its little foibles here, which might be a bit of a, what's the word? A bit of a, it could potentially be a deal breaker for some of you, for some potential buyers, is the fuel tank capacity. It's only 12 litres. 12 litres of fuel, what's that? Like 4 or 5 gallons? 4 or 5 US gallons, something like that. Not a lot of fuel. Over the last few days that I've been riding it, I've already had to fill it up 3 times. Now granted, I have done quite a lot of riding with it already. I've put about 300 or 400 miles on this bike already since buying it. But yeah, it's probably going to get you about 120, maybe 130 miles out of a tank, if that, on a good day. You are going to be filling up this bike fairly regularly. So yeah, a bit of a downer there, to be honest with you. It would have been nice if you could have gotten 15 litres. If you could fit 15 litres into this tank, but see, would I want a different tank design to accommodate the extra fuel? Probably not. It is more design over substance, I think, with this bike in certain regards. The aesthetics are more important than certain practical values. But yeah, we'll see when we do our longer trip in the next week or so. We'll see what it's like on the highways, and we'll see how often I have to fill it up. But yeah, I'm probably going to be stopping off at service stations and paying for more premium fuel, annoyingly. I mean, this long trip that I've got planned is 4 hours long, so I suspect that I'm gonna have to be filling up in between somewhere. So it's a bit of a shame. But nah, these are things that I can look past. These are things that I don't worry about, you know, because most of my journeys are shorter trips. You know, the most I'm usually riding is about a couple of hours, and I'm not riding too far away from roads that I recognize and roads that I know. So for the most part, that's not going to be a huge deal for me. But if you do plan to do longer journeys with this bike, then that is something to consider. Now let's discuss the price. Now this is a used bike, but it's in pretty good condition. But it is 7 years old now at this point. Despite how good it looks, it is getting on a bit now already. Runs absolutely perfectly, no issues whatsoever. But I paid £8,500 for this bike, which is quite a lot of money for a 1000cc bike. It's quite a lot of money for an entry-level cruiser. Now you can get these a little bit cheaper. I got this from Fraser's, so it's a dealer, so there is a little bit more of a markup. But £8,500 is how much I paid for this. So you're probably looking between £7,000 to £8,000 on the used market for this model year, which I don't think was too bad. But cruiser bikes, they do demand a little bit more money. But there you have it, everybody. This has been the 2019 Indian Scout 60. I've loved this motorcycle so much over the last few days. Sure, it's got some issues here and there, and it's got some impracticalities about it, but all in all, for me, it's totally worth it. I thoroughly enjoy riding it, and that is what's most important. If you enjoy riding the bike, then you can look past its little foibles. You know what I mean? And that's certainly the case with this. I've fallen head over heels with this bike. But thank you ever so much for joining us on our ride review today. Please go ahead, leave that like, hit that subscribe button, and the notification bell so you don't miss any more videos from us on this awesome motorcycle. And yeah, you guys, I hope you enjoyed it today. But yeah, you guys, thanks again. You take care, ride safe. We'll catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.